All right, welcome everyone. We'll get things underway. Sorry about the delay in starting. Often these days on Zoom, you can have the odd technical difficulty. So ironic that we're having that on the connectivity webinar. Anyway, let's get kicked off. I'm Brad Perry, CEO of Grain Producers SA, and we pulled this webinar together today to address the imminent 3G switch off or shutdown. It's being called in South Australia, and we're really looking at what the impacts will be on grain producers who are relying on connectivity for business. So we've brought together a number of speakers who are in the know on what will happen with the 3G switch off and the 4G transfer, and so we're really keen to get their insights and also to have as many questions come through as we can, and it's really an opportunity to inform yourself not as only a grain producer but as a regional community member, just to understand what we need to do as an industry, how we can adapt, some of the challenges and opportunities too in the 3G switch off. We often see a change in technology can have some consequences that aren't thought of at the time. So we're hoping that through this webinar we can really put a range of resources out there and try and have as many of your questions answered. So thank you all for coming on the webinar today. We've got a full agenda. We're going to start with Telstra. I really appreciate having Michael Patterson, the SA Regional General Manager, on with us. We're also then going to hopefully have someone from Optus on the line as well, and also the Regional Tech Hub, Jen Medways, joining us, and Georgia Beecraft as well. So we'll save all the questions until the final session. If you do have a question during each presentation, make sure you put it in the Q&A box. We'll have access to that, and we'll collate those questions at the end and put them to the right speakers. You won't have the opportunity to turn your microphone on and ask that question live, so certainly make sure that you put that in the Q&A box, and we'll make sure that we'll get that answered. And where you can, let's try and have as many questions rather than statements. If there is a statement come through, I'll try and turn that one into a question. So I think we'll kick off with Michael Patterson from Telstra. So we'll hand over to you, Michael.
Thanks, Brad. And can you see? I'll try my video, see if it works. You can possibly hear me.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great.
Michael, yep.
Hey, thank you very much, Brad, and also to the whole organisation of the Grain Producers of South Australia. I really appreciate the opportunity to present on behalf of Telstra. We're just trying to also organise our network executive, Channa Senavaratna, to appear as well, but I think he's having issues with Zoom. And, inside our business, we use Microsoft Teams. So he's just trying to work through that issue. As Brad mentioned, I am the Regional General Manager for South Australia, and I've also got Tasmania under my responsibility as well. We might go to the first slide of Telstra, but at a higher level, this has been like a 5-year journey where we first announced the closure of the 3G network, and we've been actively briefing stakeholders, local governments, community groups across South Australia for almost a year. And we've taken a very proactive approach. And one of the ways we're going about it, apart from briefing people, is from a technical approach. We're taking a cluster approach across the nation, and there are over 400 clusters. And what we're doing is our networks teams are upgrading all of our network inside that cluster, and then performing things like drive surveys to make sure there is 4G equivalent to 3G. And what I'm putting to Brad and everybody on the call is, if after a cluster has been signed off for 4G equivalence, if any of your members observe any equivalence issues, we have local team members in South Australia available to investigate any of them. And we'll work with the GPSA on any issues raised. Now, I'm assuming Channa hasn't arrived yet, so I'll continue going. So this is, thank you for scrolling to the first slide. Obviously, our mobile network is quite extensive, covering 99.6% of the population, which is 2.7 million square kilometres of mobile coverage. And the rollout of our network continues, and it will continue to across the 4G network. We've stopped rolling out 3G. We have stopped some time ago, and we continue to roll out 4G coverage across the nation, as well as 5G coverage. And 5G is expected to cover 95% of the population by mid next year. In addition to our 4G network, our 5G network, on top of all that, we've also got an Internet of Things network as well, which is greater than both of our mobile networks. And it covers, we've got two networks, two IoT networks. One covers 4.4 million kilometres squared, which is significantly more than the 2.7 million kilometres squared of mobile network coverage. And the other one's almost 5 million kilometres squared, and that will be by the end of financial year 25. And we're very active in participating in co-investment programs with different levels of government. And some people on listening today, and I know that Brad and grain producers are absolutely aware of the recent win we've had in South Australia at the Limestone Coast, where we're building, a significant number of mobile base stations, 28 mobile base stations across the Limestone Coast region, increasing coverage by 44% across the network, and 1,800 dwellings, new dwellings for the first time will get coverage there. So we're an active participant in co-investment programs to continue to roll out more coverage across South Australia. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So again, we've committed to close down the 3G network, and at the same time, we're upgrading 4G and 5G to deliver at least from 4G perspective initially, and then eventually 5G, an equivalent network coverage to 3G. We first announced it in 2006, and we're seeing that the 3G network does have some limitations, and that's why we're moving to 4G and also to 5G, as more people use their mobile phones for not only voice, but also for data as well. And so behind the scenes, our networks teams are working very hard, and they're verifying all of the upgrades using their analytical tools. And in addition, as I said earlier, when a cluster, for example, the Yorke Peninsula, has been signed off, we'll do a drive survey with all of our equipment by some qualified technicians to make sure that the network is equivalent. And by freeing up, by closing the 3G network, we're also using that same frequency to expand the 5G network. So what was 3G, or what currently is 3G, when it's closed off on the 30th of June, will be reused by the 5G network across South Australia. Now, we've mentioned the date, the 5 years. It's this year that it's closing down, 30th of June 2024, and we're going about our business by doing a lot of testing of the network. We're finding also, obviously, at a global level, many of the world's largest mobile companies are doing the same thing. And you can see in the bottom of that slide, AT&T, T-Mobile and Verizon have already closed their 3G network to focus on 4G and 5G because of the functionality and the abilities of those. And also in Australia, TPG, and we're going to hear from Optus later on, they're also shutting down their 3G network. And in addition to that, we're informing people. If you look on the right-hand side, with media updates, we're doing a lot of live and advertising radio. We're SMSing people. We're informing people through our retail stores. We're using social media, as well as we're direct mailing customers in South Australia. If we can go to the next slide, please. Great. Again, we're working at absolute, many of Telstra's resources are focused on coverage equivalence. So we are doing our due diligence, working with our customers as well to ensure that the experience, the real life experience in the field is the same as what's showing up on all of our analysis. And that's what was happening right now. And we're building out our network and obviously validating the 4G equivalents. And then we're signing off those clusters. And we've signed off quite a number of clusters, almost 40 of 70 in South Australia. And one of those drive surveys, we invited Brad and other stakeholders to the Yorke Peninsula. And we did a drive survey to test the 4G equivalents. And our results showed there is 4G equivalents on the Yorke Peninsula, for example. But we obviously, when talking to customers, that we encounter other issues, things like typical black spots that still exist, particularly on the fringe of coverage, and sometimes seasonal congestion. Where we're, we did a drive survey on the Yorke Peninsula just during the summer period, and obviously there's a bit of congestion in some of those towns, and we received some of that feedback. But those issues are different to 4G equivalence issues. What we might do is go to the next slide, please. This one is around bars on the phone. And there is a bit of confusion around this from our customers, many believing that a reduction in bars correlates to a reduction in experience. That is not the case. Signal bars differ between technologies and mobile devices, and they're not always a good indicator of coverage and performance. Almost every mobile handset device is different when it comes to this, and there are currently no standards uniformly shared across manufacturers globally. So comparing bar readings between different devices could be misleading. Similarly, when it comes to technologies, there's no direct correlation between bars and user experience on one technology compared to another. We've got some pictures there. So the picture on the right highlights where we've measured the same device in the same location. The only difference being whether it was on our 3G or 4G network. The left results show 3G receiving higher bars, but a far lesser overall experience, both in terms of download and upload speeds compared to the 4G service on the right. Because 4G is a newer, more efficient technology, it is essentially meaningless to compare signal bars between different handsets. We do have an article that we can share, Brad, with you and any person interested on this webinar. We might go to the next slide, please. I'm just conscious of time. If anybody wants to ring a bell or something like that, I'm happy to speed up or slow down or complete the presentation. Again, this is where I said at the start of the program, the briefing, that we're doing a lot of briefings. We have been doing it for approximately 12 months. We're briefing stakeholders in regional Australia, and we're briefing community groups, and we're briefing local governments, as well as other levels of government as well, in particular the Federal Minister's Office as well. And they're just some examples of some of the briefings we've been undertaking across the landscape of Australia. I've personally been involved in the Limestone Coast, the Southern Mallee, the York Peninsula. I've had team members doing one right now, actually, on the Eyre Peninsula, concurrently with this one. I've been to the Fleurieu and also the mid-north coast as well. So we've been around, we're making ourselves available, and we're talking about the transition between 3G and 4G and all the work we're doing behind the scenes, as well as with customers, to make it to make everybody aware of the process. Can we go to the next slide, please? Again, we're targeting communications to our customers across South Australia. Lots of reminders are going out. Most of the primary media outlets will have Telstra marketing to make sure people are aware of the closure. So we want to educate and increase awareness as much as possible. But the numbers are there. There are 73,000 devices presently on the network in South Australia. 33,000 of those are in regional localities, and 8,000 are held by consumer customers. And we're obviously doing our best to make everybody aware of it. Some of the other devices on the network are IoT devices or machine to machine. So they are SIM cards talking to each other. Some are FPOS machines, and we're doing a lot with local business chambers and business groups as well to inform them of the closure, particularly around the fact that, thank you, that now is the time to upgrade everybody's handset to ensure continuity of service. We've got a frequently asked questions, high profile page on our website as well. Next page, please. Absolutely, we're doing our best to support every type of customer, including older and vulnerable customers. We're working with those industry associations, as well as those our customers in the healthcare and aged care groups. Every aged care facility who has an account with Telstra and an account representative is being informed by their account representative to make sure that the individuals as well as the businesses are aware of the process. And we've got some relatively cheap phones available to make sure we can help with the migration. There's one there for $59. There's the other one for $149. So, and those handsets, after feedback from older and vulnerable customers, are ones like big button phones used predominantly for voice and texting. So we've listened, and we've got some of the right products out there for those customers. Next slide, please.
Michael, do you want me to speak?
Yes. Is that Channa?
Yes. Sir.
Oh, great. Thanks, Channa. Yes, please.
Okay. So you've covered some of the earlier stuff. So this discussion was really around LEO satellites, just because it is a point of major interest around regional Australia. So Telstra's done a lot of work exploring different types of satellite technology, and obviously, we all the operators use geostationary satellites, but in particular, a lot of interest for regional Australia around LEO satellites. So I won't go through all of them, but obviously, everyone's aware about Telstra's deal with Starlink to have a consumer broadband and USO voice service, which launches at around the end of March. We also just earlier this week announced the first call over the OneWeb LEO. So that's all about using LEO satellites for connectivity to remote towers or base stations, and obviously for us having a coverage out to 2.74 million square kilometers, we need to use that capability, particularly in this use case where we're shutting down 3G and putting in 4G in those remote sites. We are leveraging OneWeb backhaul, which obviously makes the economics a lot more attractive. Just going right to the end, enterprise connectivity. So the Telstra Starlink deal not only covers consumer, we also have enterprise offerings. So there's a fixed type service with an SD-WAN controller, but we also have offerings for enterprise customers where you can get a Starlink service on the move on your your truck or your van or whatever. And also there's another deal where you on pause where you can move your satellite service, Starlink service, but during times when you're on the move and not having it turned on, you don't get charged for it. So that's what's called on pause. Then coming back to the direct to handset, obviously a lot of publicity around that, and Telstra is also going to be doing a trial with some customers with our partner. We will announce that partner later today. Our CEO will announce that, so I'm not going to say anything until she does. And there's also some opportunities around using LEO satellites for the Internet of Things coverage as well. So that's what that's about. And I think the last slide just brings to life the different types of. So if you go to the next slide. Yeah. So this one is just around the different types of direct-to-handset services which are on the horizon. So we know that Apple today have an emergency service for their iPhone 14 and 15. The middle one is really about the various players and the services available. So today, anything with direct-to-handset is only messaging, text messaging, and as I said, there are others who announced trials with providers, but that is a text messaging service. We are doing some testing potentially for a voice service. So this is all with today's handsets, so unmodified smartphones as we have them today. So potentially maybe voice in 2025, but that's still to be confirmed. And then in the long term, there is a new generation of handsets which are coming, which are called which support what's called non-terrestrial networks, and that's it's around the 2026 mark and beyond. And those handsets are much better in terms of doing not only consistent voice but also low-speed data, because they have an ability in their software to be able to cater for LEO satellites, which are very fast moving. They're moving at 25,000 kilometers an hour. And each one of them, so that's why with today's handsets, the quality of any voice you get would not be that great. But with the future generation, 2026 and beyond, you can make voice and low-speed data calls. And also, it's got part of the specifications will allow it to seamlessly interwork between the satellite service and also our terrestrial mobile networks as we have them today. I think that was the last of the slides. My apologies. I had a lot of trouble connecting, but I think it sounds like Michael, you covered the first few slides.
I did, Janet. And just if you get an opportunity, can you go into the Q&A? There is a question there that we can type the answer to. And I know that Brad's organised for the Q&A to happen at the end of this briefing. And Brad, I'll throw it back to you if you like, and unless you have anything you want Channa to elaborate on.
No, thank you. Thanks, Channa, and thanks, Michael, as well. Really appreciate that presentation. We'll collate the questions, Michael, so no problem there, and we'll come back to you guys at the end. So hopefully that's provided some really good information on where Telstra's at the moment with the 3G switch over. We will now move to Peter Wilmot, who's Vice Chair of Grain Producers SA, and also a grain producer on the Eyre Peninsula. Peter's just going to provide a bit of an update on what we've been doing at GPSA around connectivity, and also raise some of the things she's been hearing about the 3G switch off. So I'll pass it over to you, Peter. And just a reminder too that Q&A questions, once again, put them in the box, and we'll try and get them answered at the end. Thank you. Over to you, Pete.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. I think I'm disabled for some reason, but I'll just have a chat. Just to introduce myself, I'm Peter. I'm Deputy Chair of Grain Producers SA and a grain producer on the Eyre Peninsula near Kimber. Thanks for joining us today. I appreciate everyone's time. We have representatives here from Telstra, Optus and the Regional Tech Hub, and they've made their time available to answer your questions. At GPSA, we understand the critical importance of affordable and reliable connectivity in running our businesses. Connectivity has been a priority for GPSA, particularly looking at alternative options outside of the traditional mobile phone towers. We've recently undertaken projects with agtech companies Zedify and Connected Farms, both which provide options to have mobile phone and internet coverage on machinery and around the farm, eliminating black spots. We've also strongly advocated for better connectivity services through a federal parliamentary inquiry and to all levels of government in supporting Telstra's large connectivity project in the southeast of South Australia. But back to the topic. The 3G switch off is the topic of today's webinar, and we know that many areas of broadacre cropping across the state only have access to 3G at the moment. We've also had concerns raised by grain producers that those 3G signals are getting weaker already. We know that communication is essential for grower operations and with suppliers, customers and service providers, not only to mention providing a safe working environment. Our data connectivity is crucial in accessing real-time information for decision-making. Our remote monitoring and control systems, such as weather stations, water and soil meters, pest control, silo systems, machinery management. Precision agricultural equipment, such as GPS-guided tractors and harvesters, optimise farming practices and maximise yields. I could go on with this stuff. Adapting to the switch off has and will involve a combination of upgrading technology, ensuring connectivity with alternative networks, and potentially adjusting our farming practices to accommodate any changes in communications and data transmission methods. I'm pretty excited to hear that bit about the satellite systems coming onto the existing handsets. I think that provides some hope for the future, I guess. What am I hearing at the moment? There's a huge current issue with inconsistent signal in these regional areas. I guess it's during the current phase-out period, but devices are constantly searching and picking up either 3 or 4G, switching in between, causing dropouts at that point. And a side issue of the constant searching is device battery life is being impacted. This is across all devices. There seems to be an issue with the communication of both when the switch off will occur in an area and what it means for farmers who are currently only receiving 3G signals. Will 4G be available to them? When? How do they find out? Growers need clarity of when signal will be lost so they can prepare without impacting their business continuity. There is some concern in some areas that 4G performance seems worse than the 3G signals experienced currently. There is speculation that 4G equipment is not being utilised at full capacity until 3G is gone. And Michael, your comment regarding the bar bandwidth is now going to 5G, not to 4G, causes some concern to me. And a comment from a producer. Yes, part of today's world is upgrading technologies constantly, but it's usually for a productivity or efficiency benefit, not just because you have to. I've also heard from some producers who have had real business costs imposed by the switch off, particularly in the area of monitoring systems, from silo and storage management to basic water meters and weather stations, but also in areas such as older GPS towers needing to be replaced at significant cost. There are also producers who experience too much frustration with the inconsistent service and have invested in whole of farm connectivity solutions. These are not cheap. Overall, the impact of the 3G switch off on grain growers will depend on factors such as their current technology, infrastructure, reliance on 3G networks, and the availability of alternative networks in their area. We're running this webinar today to let you know as grain growers to get the information you need. So please do fire some questions through. And if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them too. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate that, and yeah, and good to get a wrap up of where we're at with grain producers SA on this very important issue. We're now going to move on to our Optus presenter. We've got Chris Simon, who's hopefully there, from GM of Regional New South Wales Manager at Optus, and not sure if we've got Michael Reynolds as well, who's head of NW Products, Programs and Services. They're going to share a current update and strategies to adapt to 3G going forward, from 3G to 4G, sorry, going forward.
Good morning, everyone. Is Michael on the call? I know we were both having some challenges connecting today.
Doesn't sound like we have, so it might be just you, Chris.
Not a problem at all. Well, look, ours is fairly short and sharp because it is very similar to what Michael has spoken about with Telstra. But what I'll do is just shine a light on how Optus are handling our strategy with our 3G refresh. So thank you very much, everyone, for having me. My name is Chris Simon, and I work in Optus's regional team. Here to talk about our 3G refresh. Similar to Telstra, we are refarming our 3G spectrum to utilise 4G, and we have a plan in place to ensure that we have continuity of service so that there will be continuation for coverage on Optus 4G services to replace Optus existing 3G services. So if we could just flick on to the next slide, please. So with every advancement in technology, there's enhanced performance and data speeds. We all know that the data utilisation is growing hugely year on year. And we also know that the way that in which we use devices now is completely different to what we used to use them 10, 15, 20 years ago. So as we move on to additional technology, that means that we have to move on with the times, shut down old technology and look to launch new technology. We can just skip forward. And apologies, team, it does feel like I'm rushing this, but I don't want to go over once again what Michael has gone over with the technology in the background. From September 2024 in our world, Optus will be repurposing our 900 megahertz spectrum across Australia to boost the capacity and the speed and reliability of our 4G network, and we'll also be utilising it for 5G as well. This 900 megahertz refresh, it follows our 21 megahertz refresh that was completed in 2022. Once we complete the refarm, 3G services will no longer be available, and we will continue to have either 4G or 5G network coverage in areas impacted by the 3G 900 megahertz refresh. In terms of proactive customer advisement, we have, similar to Telstra and similar to TPG, we have been working with stakeholders within the media and within industry to notify of our impending switch off, and also through our enterprise customers and their direct customers such as FPOS providers and banks. So they've all been advised proactively from January 2023, and we continue to work hand in glove with them to ensure that all of their customers are supported and their devices are ready for the 4G migration. You can just skip to the next slide, please. So what does this mean for our Optus customers? Devices that are reliant on the 3G network for voice, SMS or data will be impacted. There's a varying degree of impact that this can occur. Our analysis shows that the majority of our handset customers on our network have 4G capable devices, and those who haven't yet upgraded to a 4G capable device are being contacted directly with that conversation and assistance to ensure that they will remain connected to the Optus mobile network once the changes do occur. Depending on the hardware brand, we estimate that anywhere from 10% to 75% of legacy hardware is reliant on 3G. And as our customers continue to transition to a 4G and 5G capable device, we will roll out with them 4G voice over LTE, including voice over LTE emergency calling capability. And as I said at the very start, that is us. We've kept it fairly short and sharp in the context of the call. And we continue to thank our Optus customers, and we'll work with them hand in glove to ensure that our transition to 4G and to 5G as we close down our 3G band is kept as impact-free as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that valuable update from Optus. I think we did end up having Michael online. So is there anything else that you wanted to add to that as well, Michael? I'm happy to throw back, throw Michael the questions, Chris, if you want him to contribute.
Thanks to Chris for covering that off here. I did have a few technical challenges to get in. But look, thanks for the opportunity for us to come and sort of talk to everyone here today. And look, I think just to reiterate the message that's already been covered is shutting down the 3G network is a big deal. This type of event has only sort of happened twice in our history with 1G and 2G. So it is an important event, and it's great to see everyone's here to get across the details and get across the plan. Probably the key thing is really just to reiterate the message that the time to act is now. The time for the networks to shut down is getting closer and closer, so the clock's ticking. And I think the key thing is don't hesitate to reach out, be in touch if you need support on that journey. We need to work together as industry to ensure this goes off without a hitch, make sure everything transitions smoothly, and also look forward to the benefits everyone will get by moving to newer 4G and 5G technologies. So yeah, happy to jump into the chat, and also thanks to Chris for covering all that details while I got on.
Thank you both. Appreciate that. We'll, obviously time sticking to schedule. We'll move on to the reps from the Regional Tech Hub. I'll get Jen and Georgia to introduce themselves and provide a bit of background on the Tech Hub as well. But I know the Tech Hub's been doing a huge amount of work in the connectivity space. So just a reminder as well that we have got plenty of questions coming through, so that's great. Keep them coming, and after the Tech Hub presentation, we'll head back to everyone for some questions.
Thank you so much, Brad. Really appreciate it. And just bigger thank you to Grain Producers SA for their, I guess, foresight in pulling this together. It's a really good opportunity to engage in the 3G kind of conversation. I am just going to talk a little bit, again, conscious of time. So a couple of things I wanted to talk about is just exactly who we are and what we're doing here and what we have to offer. Introduce Georgia and a couple of other people in our team, but then just touch on some issues, I guess, or common questions that we've been asked around the 3G shutdown. So just to start, many of you may have never ever heard of the Regional Tech Hub, and that's absolutely fine. We are a program, it's an Australian government program run by the National Farmers Federation. So we work with anyone that lives or works in rural, regional and remote Australia. And that means literally anyone that kicks that, goes past the 50 sign at Sydney or probably south or north of that, and as well as some of the major cities. So we really are there as a completely free and completely independent service that, to be honest, we've actually helped about 200,000 people across the regions, including farmers right through to sort of small business operators and definitely individuals in between. So the key things that we are here to do is really, I guess, to help first and foremost with people's connectivity issues. That's both internet and phone. And as I said, we've got plenty of ways to get in touch with us, and I'll throw up a slide at the end for you to see how to get in touch with us. But absolutely, we are here, as I said, completely free service. We have a team that is spread around the country. So we have offices in each of the states, as well as we've got a help desk, again, that's all regionally based, ready to help you to answer any questions you may have, whether it's on 3G, whether or not it's around you want to improve your phone or internet, you may want a different provider, you don't know where to go, absolutely we are there to provide information. So I definitely would encourage you to go to our website, which is called www.regionaltechhub.org.au, and there is a plethora of information available for us to help you. And also, if you've got problems with your RSP or people that provide your internet or phone, we can also kind of escalate that on your behalf as well. So as I said, if I could not say it one more time, completely free and completely independent. I just might also introduce, I've got Georgia here, and I actually don't know if I can see her on the line, but Georgia, I'm not sure if you're available just to give a quick introduction to yourself. So Georgia heads up the Northern Territory and South Australia area. So she is, for anyone based in those regions, Georgia is probably the best port of call. Of course, feel free to jump onto our website and speak to any of our team as well. But Georgia is certainly there to help out. If you're in a group or a farming systems group, or you literally just want some support one-on-one, Georgia would be the first person that you can speak to. Georgia, can I get you to introduce yourself if you're able to?
Sure thing. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me today. So my name is Georgia Beecraft. I'm the Regional Partnership Officer for the NT and SA, and pretty much the crux of my role is community outreach and stakeholder engagement. So I really like to encourage having like a collaborative relationship with stakeholders. So like Jen said, like, first point of call with any questions, that's going to events as well. But I also, like, this is a new role and I want to know what you guys want, what information you want to know more about. So we can, talk as a team and get resources and information out there. So, if there's any like this, for instance, or, we have an on-farm connectivity officer as well that, helps that with that, and a small business officer. So those types of things, like any questions, or if you're having trouble navigating the website or anything like that, just I'll get my details out, and yeah, please feel free to get in touch with anything. I am also, like, any events that you want me to come to, reach out. I'm happy to help, and yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Georgia. We also have Trent online, who is heads up our help desk. So if there are any specific questions that we can answer, he's online. And also Sal Brindle is from WA. So she also has a lot of engagement with people around South Australia. So please use us as you can. Brad, if it's okay, I'll just cover off a couple of common questions, I guess, just picking up, obviously, Optus and Telstra. We work very closely with those organisations, as well as the other telcos and internet and phone providers too, on some of these 3G issues. And I think we've been around 100 events, and obviously 3G shutdown is an issue that continually comes up. And so I just wanted to cover off on a couple of things. One of them would be that, picking up the point I think that Michael raised, was please don't look at your bars on your phone. It isn't a good indicator, particularly for the newer phones. They can't pick up the differences in the spectrum and other things at the moment, as well as what they can in the past. So that I just wanted to reiterate that point. The other point, a couple of other points would be, instead of, if you're out in the regional areas, the phone system basically, and look, it's great to have Shannon and other people online, because I'm definitely not the expert, but certainly your phone reception is better. Like, so the system prioritizes phone data more than it does if you're trying to link into a Teams call, so using data that way. So if you're out in the paddock and you do need to sort of join a call or whatever it is, please, I would recommend using your mobile broadband, so your 3G or 4G, and phone into those meetings rather than using the data. You'll get a better response that way. Obviously, people may be very familiar with using Wi-Fi calling, but certainly that will continue as a really important avenue for people to continue to, the 4G switch off will not magically solve all issues. So definitely continue to think about using Wi-Fi calling where you've got that available. And again, if you don't know what I mean by Wi-Fi calling, please jump online or give us a call. It basically means you can use your internet service, your Wi-Fi system, at your house or other locations to make phone calls. So please jump on and on the Wi-Fi calling bandwagon. I'm a farmer from down here in Gunning, and honestly, it's been a game changer at our house. So let us know if you've got any issues with that. Just again, reiterating that the telcos do know who is still using the 3G shutdown, the 3G network. So this is going to sound bad, but I probably get lots of letters from Telstra that I don't always open, or same with Optus. I'm so sorry to say that. So definitely, though, if I could encourage you to, if you do get those letters in the mail, definitely open them up, because they may have really relevant information that you may need to know regarding the 3G shutdown. And just a couple of examples there. Every household has, on average, 22 to 24 connected devices. That completely freaked me out when I heard that statistic. So it isn't just the obvious phones and computers you need to think about. It could be smart TVs. It could be, in a lot of cases, health devices, which I think Michael mentioned, health monitors. Obviously, our ag tech, some of the things that you're using around your farm may have 3G connectivity only. We have been working quite closely with ag tech providers. We're finding that the big guys are clearly all over this, and a lot of the small guys are as well, but there are some that we're sort of still working through what that actually means. So it's probably a good opportunity to kind of have a look at any systems that you're using, and if you're not sure, please get in touch with your providers to ask that question. So definitely that's something that we would encourage you to do. And just on that as well, keeping in mind that IoT is not the same as the broadband system. So please, IoT is a much larger map, and Telstra in particular, I'm not sure about Optus, have a fabulous IoT map to sort of give you a better indication of where that service extends. So just a call there. The other thing we're still seeing is that, again, antennas, cell phones, other things, Peter mentioned it, they do cost. So some of these systems can be quite expensive, but having said that, they are still game changers in terms of being able to extend coverage. So even if in the future you're still not able to get that 4G coverage, they are still some really good options. And again, we have some great information, or our team is very willing to help answer anybody or point them in the right direction to give you confidence that if you are going to make that investment in, say, a $900 cell phone system for your car, for instance, that you are going to make that investment and it will work. So please have a think about that. For small businesses as well, oh God, it was a while ago, maybe about 18 months ago, I was down in the Tumut region. And at that stage, now I'm sure it's changed, but there were still 76 businesses just in Tumut, which is not the biggest town I've ever been to, that were still relying on 3G for their point of sale. So if you are someone that runs a small business or knows people, it is really important that we have that conversation from a business perspective as well as a personal perspective, because there is going to be real challenges when the system is shut down, around how to sort of access those types of services. I was at an event not long ago, and I was talking to a bloke that had a 10-year-old phone, and it was an older generation, and he just loved this phone, and it was a flip phone. It was something from, I thought, back in the 80s, but anyway, and it still was 4G enabled. So just because you may have older devices, so I shouldn't pick on this poor gentleman for having an older phone, but there are older devices that you may have, and it's important to check whether or not they are 4G enabled. And the last thing I would say on that bit is that some people, including myself back in the day, when the system was sort of, the 3G system back in the day was actually better than to only set your device to 3G only, rather than allowing it to switch between 3G and 4G. So just check your devices, because in some cases, and particularly cell phone, the advice was to turn the 4G off. Just make sure you have a look in terms of making sure that it may be 4G or 5G enabled, but you may actually have a setting set that's only to 3G. So make sure you have a look at that as well, and make sure that you do have that setting that allows you to pick up that 4G and 5G solution. Again, just picking up something that Peter said around some people are sort of experiencing and getting that sort of a vibe, I guess, that it is worse off, that they're at the moment they aren't getting as good of 3G or 4G access than what they were in the past. Our advice, we've asked this question of Telstra, and look, there may be reasons for that, but unfortunately our advice that we've been given is that you actually won't know what access you're going to get to 4G until the system switches over. They're sort of, I'm going to use the wrong words, and please don't quote me, and I'm sure the Telstra people are having a heart attack at the moment, and potentially Optus, but the system's somewhat being sort of artificially held down at the moment, and then once the system switches off, it will get full access to that for 4G, and potentially you'll at that stage is when you'll find out whether or not you'll get that that coverage. So that's actually been really frustrating for people, particularly if you're currently on the fringes of 4G, then just not sure. It depends sort of how it goes and which direction where you are and those types of things as to whether or not you will still get that access, or whether it may even be better. But our advice is, and I'm probably leave that to the experts at Optus and Telstra, but our advice at this stage is that you probably won't know until that actual switchover has happened. That was pretty much. I'm just going through the list of things that I wanted to mention. I guess just the last thing was that the on-farm connectivity program is open still at the moment, so we're still in round 1. There is still lots of money that is available under that program. So for farmers out there that suddenly you're looking at your connectivity, perhaps in a new light with the 3G shutdown coming, there is that funding available, and certainly the NFF, the Regional Tech Hub, is hosted by the National Farmers Federation. So I work directly to Tony Ma, and we work really closely with NFF. And essentially, we've set up an information service to support farmers with their connectivity. So that service is, again, completely free, completely independent. You can ring us up or engage with us and ask any question. No question is silly in terms of what your connectivity options are. And then, of course, there's that funding that's available. The current round will be open until either the funding runs out or open until May, in which case they will then be opening a second round of $15 million. We don't actually have the timing of that, but we're sort of looking about sort of the mid to sort of back end of this year for that new program. They are looking for, a lot of people have had issues with the $2 million income threshold. They are looking at that, is our understanding, as well as some of the other suppliers and things. So definitely keep in touch. We absolutely have a huge number of resources available on our website for anyone that would like to know a little bit more information about the on-farm connectivity program. Look, that's probably enough for us, Brad. I might hand back over to you. I'm conscious that we don't have very much time for questions, but please get in touch with us if you have any questions at all. Completely free and independent service.
Thank you, Georgia and Jen. Appreciate contribution there. We're going to kick straight into some questions, I think. So, and I'll throw it open, happy for anyone to answer it, but I imagine a bulk of our questions are going to be headed towards Optus and Telstra. So thank you to all that have put questions in. I'm going to kick this one off from, actually, I think it's the Shadow Minister for Agriculture in South Australia. Good question. Nicholas Anafani said, hi, Brad and T. I'm keen to unpack the term materially equivalent when talking about coverage equivalents from 3G to 4G. What does that mean in terms of practical coverage and connectivity on the ground? I know that Chana's had a bit of a go at answering that. Did you want to provide a bit of an update there, Chana?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what I was so apologies because I was late. I didn't hear that when Michael presented this. But what we've been careful about is that what we've said is that we will provide equivalent coverage to what we have on our published maps. But we know that with radio signals, they don't stop at the boundary of a map. They tend to spray everywhere, laws of physics. And so occasionally you might, on a mountaintop, get a sniff of a 3G signal, and you might be used to making a call there, even though it's outside a published map. And all we're saying is that we can't guarantee when we switch 3G off that the 4G signal will spray down that gully or to that mountaintop just like 3G did. What we're finding in practice that it actually does, because the propagation of radio is very much determined by the frequency of the signal. So our 3G is at 850 megahertz, right? That's the frequency. And our 4G that we use in regional Australia is at 700, which is a low frequency. So in most cases, it actually does get there. But what we're saying is we are not guaranteeing that, hand on heart. So that's kind of just a way of saying we will provide equivalent coverage, and as per the published maps. That's what's meant by that.
Okay, thank you, Chana. Was there anything that you wanted to provide there, Michael or Chris from Optus?
No, look, I think nothing to add. I think the key points covered by Shannon is really around the spectrum that's used for the different technologies that it sort of drives any of those differences. But yeah, definitely the published coverage is what we're aiming for as well.
I've got another question that's come in from a mid-north grain producer. 4G makes speeds faster but reduces coverage area. Is that true? And can we have a little bit of clarification around that? Someone, Telstra, Optus, whoever wants to answer that one.
Okay, I'll go and then I'll hand over to Optus. So look, that's not correct at all. as we said, we would provide equivalent coverage, and we are doing that. And as Michael would have shown, we have confirmed equivalent coverage over 98%, I think, of the 3G footprint so far. We've got 11,700 3G towers, and we've only got less than 181 3G only sites left. So we've done a lot of that, but no, absolutely not. 4G is faster. It's a superior technology. You get faster data speeds, better voice quality. But no, in fact, the propagation is determined, by the spectrum that you use. And in fact, we've got some additional capability where we get what's called extended cells, where we can get coverage if you have no obstacles. We've turned on extended cell capability, where from our cells we can get up to 150 kilometers of coverage, which you can't on 3G. Hasn't got that technology. So no, that's not correct at all. And if you're seeing that, we'd like to know where. And that goes back to a previous comment I think made by Peter as well, where I think, Peter, you said that you were seeing a flicking from 3G to 4G, or in some cases where there's 3G only. But if we haven't turned on equivalent for a 4G tower there, we need to urgently know where that is. It would be really helpful if you can send us exact locations of where that's being reported, and if there are customers who are reporting it, if we can have the mobile number of the customer, that helps us as well, just see what sort of service they're getting. So any help from you will eventually help us to track any issues, and that will help all of you.
And do you mind also covering what's going to happen to the 3G network, the Telstra 850 megahertz 3G network, when we close down the 3G network?
Yeah, sure. So that was and I think the same point was made by Chris as well, about the refarming of spectrum. So refarming. So for us, we use 850 meg, as I said before. That's our frequency band for 3G. For 4G, we actually use a different band. We use 700 meg. And so what we are doing when we shut down our 3G is to refarm it and use it for 5G. So it's not being used for 4G. So 4G is already, we're firing up the towers. As we said, we will not shut down or remove any 3G coverage until we have 4G fired up and providing equivalent coverage. So we are aiming, obviously, to shut down 3G on June the 30th this year. But everywhere we do that, we will have 4G running in all those sites. So the spectrum that we recover from 3G 850 will be used for 5G nationally. And again, because so 5G spectrum today works on a much higher frequency. 3.6 megahertz is the most popular band, which is obviously much higher in terms of frequency. But when we reuse it for 5G, reuse 850 meg for 5G, it propagates further. The 5G signal goes further. So that's what's going to help us get 5G out into regional Australia much quicker and more efficiently. And that's our purpose, and I think that's a common purpose between us and Optus.
Thanks, John. And Michael, throw to you for a quick response to that one.
Yeah, I think Chen has covered most of the key points there. I think at Optus, we use a slightly different frequency for our 3G. We use the 900 megahertz, but just as Telstra will be, we will also be looking to leverage 700 megahertz for our 4G coverage layer. So on that front, we're the same. And we will obviously be looking to refarm the 900 to our 4G and 5G networks as well to help push our coverage as well and get 5G out to more places. And then probably just one extra thing to add is, people will see 3G on their handsets now and again. And this is also comes back to what the network layering strategy, as we call it. So when do devices shift between 3G and 4G? Obviously, as we go through the move of shutting down 3G, we will optimize our network to ensure that we've got the optimal coverage without a 3G signal there, which is really where we'll see that 4G popping up in those places where you would have maybe moved to 3G in the past. So yeah, a big focus on that as part of the transition and shutdown of 3G.
I think you both may have touched on this next question from grain producer in the Eyre Peninsula, but they say, and a bit of a statement, but I'll turn it into a question. Inconsistent signals the number one issue. Devices are constantly searching and picking up one or the other, so between the 3G and 4G, and then switching between, causing dropouts. And also the side issue of trying to do that sort of kills the device's battery life as it's constantly searching. Do you envisage a change to that? So is it going to, or are we going to see a flickering now between 4G and 5G once the transition's done?
So I'll have a crack at that first. So I think Michael's already mentioned before, with this network layering that we have, it has been biased towards going from 4G down to 3G a bit earlier. There's a technical term, it's called IRAT, handoff into radio access technology. And we are, and I think we heard from the Tech Hub as well, they mentioned that as well. So we are turning that off gradually, but it's still active. And so you will see that flickering occurring from time to time. But once we shut down 3G, obviously there's no flicking between 3G and 4G. Whether it goes to 5G or not, I can't tell. But of course, you have to have a 5G handset for that to happen. If most of those folk have, and look, it's going to obviously be a little while before we get 5G out to the peripheries. Today we have, 5G covers 85% of the population, and it's growing, and we'll get it to 95% by middle of next year. But once we shut down 3G in June, it should stay steady on 4G. But again, what does help us enormously is where you're seeing this happen. Would really appreciate if you could tell us where, give us a location as accurately as possible, and if you have a mobile number that is associated with that behavior, that helps us as well, because we can look at the behavior of the mobile and we can confirm that it's flicking and why it's flicking between the two. So if you could provide us that feedback, I would appreciate that.
Shannon, Michael?
Yeah. Just quickly to add, I think generally the scenarios where we see this happening is what we call edge of cell coverage. So when you are really at the edge of the coverage that our network provides, and yeah, as we shut down 3G, there'll be less of that movement between the technologies. But having said that, the handset or the device is always looking to optimize the connection to the network. So while it is switching, it is looking to deliver the best experience. But generally, the edge of cell is generally limited by laws of physics, if you like. And the handset is doing that to optimize the connection. So I expect with the 3G network shutting down, there will be less of the movement, but yeah, it'll still be edge of cell coverage, which will be limited.
Thank you, Michael. Another question's come in from the Eyre Peninsula, and yeah, this is one that's been talked about quite a bit. Again, it's a bit of a statement, but I'll turn it into a question. Cost of business hasn't been insignificant, so I assume they're talking about the changeover in technologies on farm, because there'll be some 3G only technologies that will have to be swapped over. They say it's not yet resulting in better signals, e.g. John Deere Starfire systems run on Wi-Fi. The 3,000 towers of 3G only have to be replaced. Water leak detection units all need upgrading at a cost, weather stations, etc. List goes on. Have the telecommunications companies mapped out what's required on farm to change over some of these systems that are 3G only enabled? And also, do you think there's a lot of people out there that don't know whether it's just only able to pick up 3G and nothing else? And also there's that cost factor too. Sorry, a bit of a loaded question, but see how you go.
Okay, I'll have a quick crack at that. So in terms of I didn't quite get the connection to Wi-Fi. I'm presuming what they're talking about is that the John Deere machinery receives a signal via 3G, and then and that's used to connect to the wireless network, the mobile network, and then there's a Wi-Fi hotspot that the modem that receives it creates to use around the machinery. I assume that's what it's.
I think, China, we can probably summarize it as in, machinery is using Wi-Fi, you've got technology using Wi-Fi, all these things on farm, they're relying potentially on 3G at the moment. What's going to happen with that?
Yeah. So I mean, the provision of Wi-Fi is independent. I mean, that's what the receiving modem does, right? That's nothing to do with Telstra. It's the device. The key thing is the connectivity from the device back to the network, which is today if they're using 3G. And what we're saying is that we will provide 4G equivalent. So that should work. And again, if you're not seeing this, we need to understand why. In terms of cost of replacement cost, I guess that is always a factor when we shut down old technology. And there was a previous statement made. I think a question was asked again. I think it was by Peter about why we're shutting this down. It is very old legacy technology. It's very inefficient. And today, Telstra's only 1% of Telstra's wireless data is carried on 3G, and we've got 11,700 towers, which are live today. To carry 1% of our traffic. It's old technology. It's not efficient.
So we've lost China there. Michael, we might just jump to you while we get China back online, unless Michael Patterson, if you wanted to fill in. Otherwise, we'll go to Michael Reynolds from Optus.
I might even just pick up where Channel left off there. So yeah, 3G was introduced circa 20 years ago, and as he said, there's a huge increase in demand across our networks. And what we see is the demand on 3G continues to diminish, but the growth on 4G and 5G networks continues to really accelerate. So making sure that we've got our very important assets like spectrum working on the right technologies to deliver the best experience for all our customers right across our network is an important fact. And I think, yeah, obviously similarly for end devices to change technology, we are also going through that investment cycle as well to make sure that we are delivering the best experience right across our network for all our customers.
Thanks, Michael. Chana, have we got you back online? Or have you dropped out?
I'm back again.
Yeah, sorry, you froze there and dropped out.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's all right. All right. Well, I think we've covered it, so we'll jump to the next question if that's all right. And this one's an interesting one. I think relates to a question that's come in from the Eyre Peninsula again. There's a perception that towers operate at low strengths and are only boosted at peak times. This is a bit tongue-in-cheek, but such as field days when politicians are in town. I'm not sure that's true. Or have not been boosted yet as 3G is still operating. What's the actual situation? And as part of that, will there be a better user limit too when we switch to 4G? Because I know a lot of the farmers have their signal picking up 3G. A lot of the farmers drop out of signal during peak time, so when there's a heap of tourists in town. So it's a bit of a capacity issue. So does anyone want to have a go at that one?
So I'll have a quick go. So that's the first statement. Yeah, it's tongue in cheek, and that's not true. We don't boost signal. It's running as always the same, but it is also true that when you have tourists in town, I mean, obviously when the site gets busy, then you do have an impact in terms of the experience of people who are resident in that area. 4G is inherently more efficient, so you will get more users on there, and we see that everywhere we fired up 4G, we see that the average data speeds go up significantly. We also see more voice calls being made because the voice quality is better. So 4G in itself does stimulate, and we see more demand because of the additional capability. In terms of and we like all the operators, we constantly monitor capacity, and then we augment capacity when sites get congested. But it's very hard to, particularly if you have an influx of tourists that come for a short period of time, it's hard to be able to cater for that sort of peak demand. We look at average traffic and growth, and then we match the capacity to cater for that growth as opposed to sudden peaks, short-term peaks. It's just not economic to do that for a very short period of time, because to actually do that, you've got to do a truck roll, and that's really expensive to go up a tower and install additional equipment, then take it down again. So, we track it, we expand it as the average traffic grows.
Excellent. Anything you wanted to add there, Michael?
Yeah, I think at Optus, neither do we have any special boosting technology for politician visits either. So our network is always optimized to deliver the best experience all the time. And then just similarly on the capacity question, yeah, look, I think this one is obviously something we look at very closely. We look at all the seasonal patterns in the demand across the network. So, if you have one-off events, very difficult to cater for them. But as we look at investing in the capacity in our network, we look at the growing trend, where are the recurring seasonal movements and things like that to make sure we are delivering the capacity into the places to deliver the best experience as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. And this is probably a really good question, actually, one that that probably a lot of us haven't touched on during the presentation so far. But I guess for farmers planning ahead, so if a farmer, and this question has come from the Mallee, thank you, from my grain friend in the Mallee. Planning ahead and investing and making these investment decisions, when will farmers know the switch off date? So I understand that there's a whole switch off time that's been set by Telstra and Optus, but when will farmers definitely know what their coverage will be in their particular region and by what dates?
Okay, so what we have stated publicly is that we will not switch off 3G before June the 30th. That's our date. That's the date that we've been talking about for many years. So we will not remove any 3G coverage before that date, and we believe we are on track to provide 4G coverage everywhere that we have 3G coverage today before that date. That's our aim. So June 30 is the date, and we're not changing that date from a public announcement perspective, and it will not be before that. It's absolutely June 30th. That we won't shut it down before then.
Okay, Michael, from an Optus point of view, Renan?
Yeah, and from our side, from September 2024, we'll be shutting down our 3G network. So again, similarly, before September, we will continue to offer 3G services, and obviously working on making sure we've got that coverage parity. The final sites that we need to upgrade to 4G are being deployed. But yeah, from 1st of September, we will be shutting down our 3G network.
So just to clarify, so we understand this right. So what happens if there are areas, both Telstra and Optus, that haven't switched over? So obviously you got the date that you're aiming for. What if there are regions that haven't switched over by that time? Will the 3G network continue until the 4G network flicks on, if that makes sense? So we're not left with a gap, even if it's after that switch off date, or is all 3G just switched off at that date?
No. So from Telstra's perspective, if for some unforeseen reason we haven't got 4G fired up in an area where we have 3G, we will not shut down 3G. And our intention is that when we shut down 3G, we'll shut it all down once we know for fact that we've got 4G equivalents. So if it has to be delayed, and certainly there's publicly not saying there is going to be a delay, if there has to be a delay, then we will not turn the 3G off early until we've got 4G. Categorically, we will not do that.
Yeah,
Michael, similar?
Yeah, same on the Optus side. Yeah, we will ensure we maintain coverage until we've got adequate 4G coverage as well.
So my Mallee grain producing friend has come back and said after that, thank you for the response, both of you. So can we get access to a map of the completed conversion? Just so are there maps? What's the data that's available for farmers to go on and look at what's actually been ticked off as a conversion and will be online by that time, or is it general just commitment that everything will be all the areas will be switched over by that date?
So as we switch on 4G and we say, yep, it's working, we've ticked it off, then we add that to our available coverage map, which is on Telstra.com. So that's, just go to our Telstra.com site and look for 4G coverage, and that is your reference.
Yeah, and it's exactly the same on the Optus side. We've got publish maps on our website as well that are available at any time.
Okay, excellent. Thank you both. Question has come through from the York Peninsula. With this, 3G bandwidth going to 5G, is that happening anywhere and not 4G? And if so, is there going to be an improvement in regional 4G after the switch off?
So I'll have a correct. So what we've said is that, in fact, we apart from providing equivalent coverage to 3G, we've also said by mid-2025 we'll actually extend 4G a further 100,000 square kilometres to 2.74 million square kilometres by June 2025. With the 5G, by June 2025, 5G won't have the coverage footprint of 4G, but it will cover 95% of the population. It's already in over 450 regional towns and centres. But if I get the gist of it correctly, being able to access that lower band 850 spectrum currently used on 3G does allow us to roll out 5G quicker, but we can't make a prediction as to when we'll get beyond the 95% coverage. When we're saying June is next year is when we get to 95% coverage. Today it's about 85%. That's all we're saying publicly. But getting access to the 3G spectrum makes it easier and cheaper for us to roll out 5G in regional Australia.
And Brad, just to add, that was the YP you're talking about, York Peninsula. We are expanding our network at Wool Bay, Port Rickaby, and a second site at Edithburgh.
Thank you, Michael. Michael from Optus.
Yeah, I think from Optus' perspective, our plan is with the 900 megahertz spectrum we're using for 3G today. Once we shut down that network, we're going to repurpose that spectrum for both 4G and 5G. So we'll be looking to allocate that spectrum to the relevant technology based on capacity requirements and coverage requirements. So it will be a mix. It won't simply be dedicated for 5G. It will be used for both 4G and 5G. Whatever will deliver the best experience in those specific regions for customers.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for the update there. We got one more question, I think, before we'll need to wrap things up. I'm actually going to throw this one over to Jen, who's been listening patiently. Alternative connectivity options. I know we're talking about 3G, but seems to be a lot of farmers jumping on alternative connection options for both internet and coverage. So things like Starlink and other solutions. Can you tell us a little bit about those options that are available, Jen?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to be clear, so we are definitely there to provide people with whatever options they are. We are not aligned with any particular telco or setup. So we absolutely are there to sort of look exactly where you are, assess sort of what your needs are, whether that's data, amount of data, whether it's latency, whether it's cost, whatever that need might be. And if you're talking about an on-farm scenario, it's what kind of technology that you would want them to be putting on your farm and how to sort of connect it. So we absolutely have a whole of systems and tools, I guess, in the background to test that. So whether there might be trees in the way, or it might be hills, or you want a particular type of technology, we can run a completely free report for you that will give you that information. As well, we've got a book-in, so you can actually book some time in with our team to have that conversation. They can literally look up where you are. We run it through a few different your location and needs through a bit of a system, and it will give you all the options available. We certainly are seeing the advent of Starlink and some other technologies that are definitely growing, and they certainly, do a certain need. And of course, we see NBN products that are certainly increasing in terms of on unlimited data, things like that. So the options that are available to particularly farmers and even more so in rural, regional and remote Australia absolutely growing exponentially. And so certainly it's important that if you haven't looked at your internet options over the last sort of, we would say roughly around 18 months, and that includes your phone as well, please reach out to us, because inevitably we can help you potentially find a new solution or potentially a better plan or whatever it might be. We just need to have that conversation with you. So look, there are definitely options that we're seeing. Telstra's announcements with Optus, with Starlink, and of course Optus have made similar announcements on different types of technology. The world is changing quite dramatically, and particularly in that ag tech space. It also helps having the on-farm connectivity program available in terms of if you find those solutions that are available, that grant funding, admittedly on a matched basis, but there is funding available to help with those connectivity, because they can be quite expensive. But again, I mentioned at the beginning, the conversations that you can have with our team will hopefully give you that confidence that if you are going to make those investments, that they will hopefully definitely work, because we've certainly seen the opposite, where people have spent a hell of a lot of money and time and energy on solutions that potentially were never going to work for the right purpose, or weren't quite fit for purpose for your particular need. So again, we're certainly there, but the options are definitely changing, as that person has rightly pointed out, and that's just one of the the mix of options that we can give people on their to address some connectivity challenges.
Excellent. Thank you, Jen. Just before we sign off, wondering whether you've got it handy there, you may not, Telstra and Optus, is there an email that you can read out? So if any of our growers or anyone that's listening has got an issue with their coverage and wants to get in touch directly, what's the best email?
And Brad, just from a Telstra perspective, I've sent that in the question from Nicola Centofante. I've sent our email address, which is telstrasa@team.telstra.com.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Michael. And Michael Reynolds, have you got one from Optus?
Maybe Chris, do you want to take that one?
I think I will, Michael. I'm happy to nominate my direct email address. So if anyone has any follow-up questions or queries or concerns relating to Optus, please feel free to send it to Chris, CHRIS, .simon, SIMON, @optus.com.au. And while I am talking, just to close off very quickly from Optus's perspective, what the Regional Tech Hub mentioned around the assessment of your existing telecommunications needs, I cannot advocate for that enough to ensure that you always do look at what is out there. Optus's perspective, we've built an additional 121 new mobile sites across regional South Australia since 2015. And we are also announced a partnership late last year with SpaceX, where we will have direct-to-handset capabilities. That will be trialling in 2024 for text services and voice and data services for 2025. So there's a lot of information on our website, or feel free to email me directly, and I'm happy to have a one-on-one conversation.
No worries. Thank you all. Well, that's got us to the end of the webinar, and I must say, I apologise about some of the technical difficulties that we had. I think that it's always ironic when you hold a webinar about connectivity that you have connectivity issues. So seems to be a thing, doesn't it? We've reached the end of the webinar. Thank you for our presenters from Telstra, the Regional Tech Hub, Optus, and obviously Peter Wilmot as well. For everyone that tuned in and for anyone that may listen to the recording, thank you all. I hope it's been informative and you've managed to get the information you're after. And once again, thank you all for joining us. And that's it from us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.